It's Flames Nation Radio. It's Ryan. It's Shane. It is almost. We're recording this on, I guess, the first day of summer. The summer solstice, June 22nd. It's going out early on the 23rd of June. Happy summer, everybody. We made it. It's Flames Nation Radio, delivered to you by DoorDash and by the lovely people at Eau Claire Distillery, the makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. And it's the off season now. And hopefully you're all enjoying yourselves, have a chance to go outside and enjoy some of the hopefully non-rainy weather when you're listening to this. It's Alberta and it's a season, so there's a good chance it might be raining or snowing at any given time. So when it's not, take advantage of it. It's been a weirdly busy week, Shane.
It's been a lot of drama.
So let's
unnecessary drama.
Let's hit the news really quickly. So one, the Flames are officially going to be taking part in the Young Stars Classic tournament in Penticton in the third weekend in September, second weekend in September. Mid-September. First games are on Friday, the 16th of September. It runs through until the Monday, which I believe is the 19th, and then they fly home, and then it's training camp time. So that'll be fun. It's good to have. It's a nice way to ease yourself into the hockey season. So if you have any vacations or loved ones you want to see, you want to just tell them as of the 15th of September. Try to find you between whistles. That's the goal. So the Flames will be one of four teams in that tournament. They haven't really done the tournament. So the Flames haven't been part of the tournament in a while, Shane. So see if I can remember this, if I get this straight. So I believe in 2019, the Flames went to China. 18 or 19 went to China. One of the, they
18-19, because that was the year they had Neil.
Yeah, 18-19, they went to China. And so the Flames were invited to the tournament. They said, well, we're going to go to China. It wouldn't really work out. So the Flames didn't participate because they were in China. The year afterwards, they did just a couple of games with the Oilers on their own because, I don't know, they wanted to try something different. There were rumors at that point that the Flames might be looking with the Oilers at starting something in Red Deer, like a broader tournament because, I don't know, travel to and from, Penticton is a bit of a pain in the butt. Doing it to Red Deer is a lot easier. And you can check out the donut mill. And everyone loves the donut mill.
And they could leave Conroy there if they really want to.
Again. So the Flames haven't been part of this tournament in a while. It was supposed to be back in 2020. That obviously didn't materialize for the reasons you can imagine. They were looking at maybe doing it last year. Again, didn't quite work out. So this year, knock on wood, it's the back to normal Penticton tournament. It's kind of back to basics this year. It's just Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and the Winnipeg Jets. So four teams. They might be expanding it in future years, but I think they just sort of want to get all these teams some reps in and sort of do it back to basics. So ticket information will be out soon. It's a fun week. You get to, Penticton, if you've ever been to Kelowna at any point or Penticton at any point, it's a nice little area. It's pretty. You can do wine tours, you can do golf tours, you can do whatever. So if you have a favor to pull in with the better half or with your buddies, Penticton's a great place to go. You can do non-hockey things with your non-hockey friends or spouses during the day, and then you can go to hockey at night. It works out really well. So that's our cheap plug. It's at the really, really nice South Okanagan Event Center in Penticton. It's a beautiful facility, very modern, very clean. They wish they got to use it more than they do. It's the home of the Penticton V's, who are a very fun hockey team who occasionally put players in the NHL. So that's the big news. The other things, we'll get two things out of the way right away. One, we have no idea what's happening with Johnny Gaudreau.
Nothing.
Louis Gross has not been responding to our calls, emails, and carrier pigeons, nor has Brad Treliving. Granted, at this point, we're used to Brad Treliving ignoring our phone calls, emails, carrier pigeons, notes on a string, tin can telephones. If Gaudreau is signed, they tell us. If Gaudreau is close to be signed, someone would leak it out. So nothing's done, nothing's close, but who knows? By the time this comes out, maybe that changes. Also, I'll just put this out there. So earlier this week, there was a report from ESPN's Kevin Weeks about Ryan Huska potentially getting hired as the coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. All I can tell you is that he hasn't been hired as of right now. I don't know if he's been interviewed even. I find it weird that we only really say nice things about good people in sports when either something horrible happens to them or something great happens to them. In the sense of, on one hand, Chris Snow has been a very nice human being pretty much as long as I've known him, the better part of a decade. So it's kind of, let's say nice things about people when we don't have, nervousness around them. Chris Snow, very good person, doing really well as AGM and kicking ALS's ass as of this writing. And so hopefully that continues. He was at the NHL Awards the other night, which will transition to some talk we'll do in a second. But Ryan Huska runs the defense, very qualified coach, very good coach. Again, known him for the better part of a decade too. Had the good pleasure of knowing him and covering him in various capacities in the Flames organization. Best I know, as far as I know, the Flames, the plan right now is they're going to have the same coaching staff next year because the coaching staff was pretty good last year, and they would like to continue that. But they also, it's been brought up by Pierre LeBrun and various other group folks. The Flames have, Mitch Love in Stockton, soon to be the Calgary AHL team that remains unnamed, just won Coach of the Year. Ryan Huska, he was the interim coach before Daryl Sutter came in. He got 2 games in as a head coach. He's very well regarded league-wide because, he does a good job with the young D and the penalty kill. And he was a good AHL coach. The Heat were pretty good and kept producing NHL players while he was the head coach. Again, Cale McLean, he's the eye in the sky for the Flames right now. They've been very good this year. When the Flames make adjustments mid-game, that is partially the head coach and partially Cale McLean calling down saying, hey guys, should we try X? So again, he's an up-and-coming coach. Kirk Muller has been, he has a very good reputation as an NHL player. He's developed a pretty good reputation as a power play coach. The Flames power play was top 10 this year. Needless to say, if you hear a rumor that the Flames might be losing one of their coaches, consider the source, but I'd also be inclined to believe them. Like the reason, we all got excited for Husk very quickly because, he's a good coach and, it's believable that other teams would want to hire him away. But again, our best information as of this taping is that I don't think he's been interviewed. I don't know if he's been, if they've had any talks, but he's definitely someone who's got some buzz around him, but I don't know if Chicago is going to be a place he lands simply because I don't know, they haven't talked to him from what I'm told. So,
and if he's got any consolation prize, he can go online and see all of the great things that were being said about him. Everyone thought he was about to be hired.
Bless you.
He's so
two of the good people in sports, in Chris Snow and Ryan Huska, and of course we only say things when we only really say nice things about them when things that are either exciting or kind of nerve-wracking happen to them. So we'll say this, 2 good people, Chris Snow and Ryan Huska. It was really cool. I don't know if you watched the NHL Awards on Tuesday night. They got it done in an hour, which is great. They kept it tight and they managed to get some good stuff in. They kept it tight, right under an hour, and they managed to have a lengthy standing ovation for Chris Snow as he went, he and his family, his wife Kelsey and their kids Willa and Cohen went out to, they presented the Norris Trophy to Cale Makar, a Calgary kid. So it was kind of cool to see Calgary people presenting an award to a Calgary kid. But I don't know. I think it was super cool to sort of see how they programmed that award show. It was kind of cool. They got done in an hour and they had time for some really cool moments. And Keenan Thompson was hilarious.
Keenan Thompson using Daryl's press skits to create like an SNL style skit was my favorite part of the night. I was giggling and laughing and it was truly tremendous. So shout out Keenan Thompson and shout out Daryl Sutter for always keeping us on our toes.
And Keenan Thompson with his, I think he had two or three, he had 3 really good lines. I'll try not to butcher them. 1, there'll be no fighting. This is the NHL Awards, not the Oscars. Gold. 2, Austin Matthews is the only person who scores more in Toronto than Drake. Bam. And finally, and it got cut off the American broadcast. It got cut off in the ESPN broadcast that I was told. But the end of the show in the Sportsnet feed in Canada, the last line before they cut the feed was, it's nice to see the Leafs winning something in June.
Bam.
Oh,
And
he was
no comeback, man. They can't come back to that. They can cry about it, but there's nothing he can do.
If we could make a recommendation to the NHL, two things. One, Chris Snow on the awards show every year. Actually, three things. Chris Snow on the awards show every year. Just do it. It's never not going to be heartwarming. Two, keep it under an hour. That an hour, it flew by. There was no filler. They just went boom, 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 boom. Like it's and it was good. It was quick and it was good. And they didn't need to overdo it with anything to fill time. They had just enough content to fill. Three, Keenan Thompson needs to host this thing every year. Either him or John Hamm. Pick one of those, whoever's free, one of those two guys, and then just keep them under an hour.
Well, when they cut out, they just did the major awards, right? Like that was the kicker. They announced all the minor ones ahead of time, and they just did.
I think the
best
majorest award,
MVP, by
the most
players.
major award that they did not announce in that show was the Selke. The Selke was done separately. I don't mind it. I think if you did 6 awards on that show, you'd have to cram them all in. I think 5 is the sweet spot. You got 10 minutes of content for each award, and then you have some stuff you could fill in. They did a nice tribute to Willie O'Ree. They did an in memoriam reel. They had enough time to do, give some props to different groups and different organizations, and it was just really well done. So you'll off in media and in podcasts, wherever, we tend to complain a lot when things don't happen things that happen that we don't like. So we'll give the NHL credit and their television partners credit. They did a fantastic job with that broadcast, and there was a lot of Flame stuff on that. Like Daryl Sutter was the only Flame who won an award this year. He was obviously he finished first place for the Jack Adams Award, but other guys who will receive, I assume they get plaques or some sort of a commemorative something. Johnny Gaudreau is voted the first team all-star left winger. Matthew Tkachuk was the second team all-star right wing, and Jacob Markstrom was the second team all-star goaltender. Elias Lindholm finished second behind Patrice Bergeron for the Selke, and Jacob Markstrom finished second behind Igor Shesterkin for the Vezina, and Johnny Gaudreau finished fourth place for the Hart voting. So that's a lot. There's a lot of Flames pretty much all over everyone's ballots, and I think rightfully so. I mean, if you go up and down that roster, there was a lot of good things happening all over the place. And what stood out to you amongst the awards and the voting and everything you've seen award related, Shane?
I'm not going to complain because Tkachuk too hard, because Tkachuk actually did get a notification. I personally think he's the first all-star right wing in the league, but I mean, you're mincing words. You still get recognition, and they still go later towards Hall of Fame possible recognition and stuff like that. So they all get it there. Shesterkin rightfully won the Vezina in my mind. Markstrom, it was him or Saros the second for me. A coin flip between those two. Selke was Bergeron had an unreal year. Lindholm was great and should have been on ballots, but what Bergeron did this year statistically and on the ice was fantastic. Some of the best stuff he's ever had. So rightfully so, he deserved that one as well. I just like looking at all the ballots. We were talking before we recorded. I love when I'm looking at because Frank Saravelli, he's the president of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, released everyone's ballots this afternoon. And
the ballots have been public since I think 2018.
Yeah, and so this year's got released, and I love looking for anomalies. I love looking for someone that adds something. And shout out to Thomas Drance of The Athletic. He put Chris Tanev 5th on his Norris ballot, which I love. I love having a defensive defenseman, someone who plays at such a high defensive level against top level competition, get some recognition. Drance obviously saw him a lot when he was in Vancouver.
I'll say this, I know Drance fairly well. He watches everything. If there's a hockey game going on late at the Eastern time in the Pacific or Mountain time zone, he's probably watching it. And I mean, let's give credit where it's due. Like Chris Tanev, in the previous season was the best Flames defenseman. He was the fixer. And he I think the only recognition he got was some Lady Bing votes last year. This year, I mean, yeah, he was the best defenseman, all around defenseman on the second best defensive team in hockey, right? So I mean, you can't really give too much flack to Drance, because as soon as I saw, my two reactions were, I'm like, because Drance actually got ahead of it. He tweeted out, it's like someone, I think it was Haley Southey of the Athletic, mentioned, oh, that's kind of interesting. Tanev got a 5th place vote. And then Drance was pretty proactive. He retweeted, was like, yeah, that was me. Here's my ballot. And yeah, like he wore it as a badge of pride. And I think he should, because as soon as I heard the vote, I'm like, oh God, it's a smart move. Like it's a bold vote because it's sort of out of the ordinary. But the more you think about it, the more the Norris is meant to be for best all around performance in the position. And yeah, I'd say Tanev. He wasn't 5th on my ballot. I don't think I would have strongly considered him, but I value different things about defensemen necessarily than other people do. And, that's why we have 200 people voting.
There's one award I would like to add, and I think a lot of people would, if the NHL could find a way to create, they have a defensive forward award. They don't have a defensive defenseman award. They have 2 awards for the goalies too. They have the Jennings, which is least goals against, and
Jennings is statistical
team award.
It's like saying like, yeah, you have the Jennings for giving up the fewest goals. You have the Rocket Richard for scoring the most goals. You have the Art Ross for scoring the most points. And so yeah, I could totally see the justification that if it was up to me, I'd make two changes. One, I would give the Lady Byng the NHLPA. Let the NHL players decide who the most gentlemanly player is. I think that'd be interesting. And then I'd replace that with the Rod Langway Award for best defensive defenseman, or whoever. You can name it after whoever the hell you want.
Good name. You could name it after anyone that's been like, honestly, Nick Lidstrom should have an award named after him. You could
okay. Well, while we're on that topic, so Patrice Bergeron basically has dominated the Selke conversation since basically the last decade.
Since Datsuk retired.
Would you ever entertain the idea of renaming the award after Patrice Bergeron when he retires?
You'd have to fight me on the Datsuk thing, because Pavel Datsuk was a midget. They called him the Magic Man for a reason, and recency bias is a hell of a thing. And if I watched him growing up doing magic things, and the way he could just pick your pocket and go the other way in one fluid motion was unreal. I would entertain that. Like, we've renamed awards before. The Lester B. Pearson is now the Ted Lindsay Award. So there's precedent, and it keeps it modern, and it keeps it, it keeps it interesting. And it honors great. It's a really good way to honor fantastic, great players that devoted their life to the game. And like, you could honestly rename the Norris Trophy anything, like Bobby Orr Trophy or the Nick Lidstrom or the Ray Bourque. Like there's so many options for that. I personally am a huge Nick Lidstrom fan. I think he's one of the best defensemen that's ever played hockey. So I also grew up, like, that's from age 10 to 20. That's when I was watching prime Nick Lidstrom. So it's everyone's a little biased on who they like to watch based on who they watch.
So from what you saw, like, were there any anomalies you saw with the balloting? Anything make you go, or for the most part, like, I basically skimmed through them, and I, as a voter myself, my initial thought is, oh God, don't let me do something stupid. Because like, when you're in there, you're in the bubble. I mean, I'll disclose freely, after I came up with my ballot, I bounced some ideas off Shane. I'm like, am I stupid? Like, this is what I walked him through after we recorded an episode right before I submitted my ballot. And we stopped recording, and I walked him through my ballot and said, does this make sense? Here's my logic. Does this make sense? And Shane, he was like, oh, that's fine. You don't sound too stupid. I mean, I think the phrase you used was the regular ballot.
Yeah, I like right now. There's one ballot, and someone draw attention to me that was crazy, because he had Patrice Bergeron 5th on his Selke behind David Kampf of the Maple Leafs. That's and I'm not criticizing him. I would just like to hear his logic. Seth Rohrabaugh, I'm saying his name so bad.
Yeah, from Pittsburgh. Seth.
From Pittsburgh, and he actually had a few things. He had Johnny first on his Hart ballot. He had quite a few interesting picks, and I would love to just sit and be like, can you please just tell me why? I'm not everyone has a right to vote however they want to vote. I don't think that's a critical thing. They're all professional hockey writers. They've all been chosen. They've all been invited to participate as a member of this group. So everyone's allowed and entitled to their opinion, but I still love just like, why? Like, just why? I'm curious.
I'm a big fan of of wacky voting. I mean, like I'll say like I think the main thing that a couple of people mentioned on Twitter, and I won't just say, hey, I see you Leafs and Oilers fans, but I see you Leafs and Oilers fans.
We all
so I had my first my heart vote, my number one heart vote was I think my heart I had top three were Matthews, Gaudreau, McDavid, and then when in the All-Star voting, I put McDavid 1 and Matthews 2 for center. And the reason was it's the most valuable to your team aspect versus best at position. I thought Connor McDavid was the best center at his position. He had 122 points. He was just really friggin' good all year. Well-deserved, first place. I think he ended up finishing second behind Austin Matthews in the All-Star voting. So I was sort of an anomaly there. But I thought Matthews was more important to the Leafs' success than McDavid was. And that's why I had Matthews number one for my heart voting. I think compared to if you want to get down to it, to me it was McDavid was amazing, but he had a Draisaitl with him, and a lot. And Matthews, I felt like Matthews had less help.
Well, and also the even strength scoring of Austin Matthews, like it was legendary this year. How many he almost had as many even strength goals as Johnny Gaudreau had even strength points, although Johnny Gaudreau led the league in even strength points. But he had like 36 goals when I was doing a report, and the next closest person was 22 at even strength goals, and this was late in the season. He had like a 14 even strength goal lead on second place, and it was just unreal. He's just one of the better goal scorers we've ever seen. It truly is special to watch him play. I'm a big Austin Matthews guy. Pike knows this. I'm a closet.
He's fun to he scores goals and he's clutch. He's clutchy McClutch. So
I was interesting to see the guys that also voted a goaltender for the Hart, because we always say some people say goaltending is the most valuable position in hockey. And it's like, well, then the best goalie should win the Hart Trophy every year, right? Like in theory, but it's just fun.
I had Shesterkin on my Hart ballot. I think my 4 and 5 are Shesterkin and Yossi.
Yeah, I would have too. I like the Yossi one. I'm a big Pike knows I'm a big Cale Makar guy. I love it the way he plays speed.
Okay, okay. I'm curious with you. So for the Norris, I had Makar, or I had Makar 2, Yossi 1. Yeah. So Roman Yossi I believe he had more first. It was 98-92 for first place votes. So Roman Yossi led in first, third, and fourth place votes.
Cale Makar won it in the second.
Cale Makar won second place vote. So I find that fascinating. Just it's the first place, second place distinction is what effectively it was the weird. People that picked Hedman. It was the people that picked Hedman first. Pretty much all had Makar second and Yossi third, and that's what killed Yossi's chances. That like it was pretty much neck and neck. Like you said, it was 98-92. So that's six vote first place difference. Yeah. But then the second place vote was like a 30 vote difference in favor of Makar. And like I said, that's anyone that had Hedman. I don't know if anyone else had anyone weird. I haven't checked it yet here. It's been Yossi, Makar, Hedman pretty much. Yeah, and honestly, I think if you want to say who are the top 3 defensemen in the league last year, they're a combination of those 3. So I mean, I don't know. Like I said, reasonable people are entitled to disagree. I felt strongly about my choices, and when I saw that, this is the only category, only major award category where the guy I picked as number 1 didn't win. So I mean.
That's true. I mean, Pike, that's some good. That's some self-assurance there too. Like,
it was close. It was close. But I think those are the fun things, and it's going to be so much fun to watch Makar and Yossi compete with each other. Especially Makar is so young,
and Charlie McAvoy.
They're all so young. These young bucks.
Super interested in what happens with Charlie McAvoy, because the Bruins are going in a southern direction next year. Bergeron's out, Marchand's out. They
don't know the Bergeron's out. Bergeron's not going to play for anyone.
He's having surgery. He's having surgery. That's what I'm saying. He'll be out to start the year, even if he wanted to come back. Same with Marchand, I believe. And McAvoy and a new coach too, because Don Sweeney's now in Vegas. So Don Sweeney's in Vegas. Pete DeBoer went to the Stars.
Bruce Cassidy's in Vegas.
Oh, Bruce Cassidy.
Don Sweeney fired
Don
Bruce
Sweeney's
Cassidy.
the GM. Don Sweeney. I get them mixed up. It's the Bruins. They're all Cam Neely's in charge. That's how I know things with Boston, anyways. But yeah, no. But the coaching carousel is in full motion. There are people moving everywhere and people interviewing everywhere because there's like 12 vacancies or something like that. I'm over exaggerating.
4 or 5 left.
I was over exaggerating on purpose.
It's okay. Since we have you, and Andrew Burnett is a Jack Adams finalist and very, very well deserved Jack Adams finalist. I mean, yes. He was on the staff before, and then he inherits the gig.
In a pretty precarious situation, he has to immediately take over with no warning.
Coach Q goes bye-bye, and all of a sudden, Andrew Burnett, it's all on you. And he, they weren't great in the playoffs, but a lot of teams are good in the regular season for a while and then not great in the playoffs.
It's not easy to win around. Like everyone was picking Florida right out of the gate, and I was like, they've had the same amount of success as the Maple Leafs over the last 30 years since they'll went be back to the final in 90.
They'll be back too. But I mean,
and so I was like, they've got to do something for me to actually think.
I'll say this. I get the idea of going with the guy with a track record because, Paul Maurice has a long resume, but Brunette, like what more could Brunette have done in the regular season? What more could he have done?
Now, did they let him rate go? I'm going to ask you, did they let him rate go or did they just demote him back to associate?
I don't know because generally what happens when say I'll use the example. So when Jeff Ward got promoted here on an interim basis, essentially they bring you in, say, hey, we want to make you interim coach. And they go, okay, cool. And they drop a new contract. And usually it's a 1-year contract. Be like, they change your money slightly. They change your title. They tear up the old contract. Usually it depends on the situation. So my understanding is that basically Brunette had a contract for the remainder of the year as an interim coach. And I assume his previous contract is an option for him, but I mean, he's done the job, and I can't imagine. It's like if you're running a store and they say, "Great job running the store. We're going to bring in someone else. You'll assist him." It's like that's super awkward because you did the job, man. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. I think
the issue is there's only 32 jobs, right? Like, there's only 32 jobs. You just had one. You did a good job. If they offer you to be an associate, take the money and wait because people get hired from other companies. Also.
And so the way the sort of the gentleman's agreement in the NHL generally is that if it's pretty much like it's across the board in terms of management positions too. If you have an opportunity to get a promotion, they'll let you interview for it. So the example, like Kirk, when the Flames interviewed and ended up hiring Jeff Ward initially, he was an assistant coach in Boston, I believe. I think it was Boston. He was an assistant coach out east, and associate is a higher title and better pay, and so it's a promotion. And so the Flames, the Flames asked for permission to interview him, and they were told they're asked, is it a promotion? And they said yes, and they said okay, cool. For example, typically like if say hypothetically if Chicago wanted to talk to Ryan Huska, the procedure is you call up the GM. Like if I'm Kyle Davidson, their GM, I call up Treliving and say, hey, how you doing? We want to interview one of your coaches for a position. And Tree would say, is it a promotion? And they would say yes. And if they say yes, sure. Yeah, okay, talk to them. It works for management too. I mean, I believe the rumor was actually, I think it was confirmed Craig Conroy interviewed in Buffalo when that opening was up because it was a top level GM position rather than assistant GM. And so, yeah, they call up and say, they call the GM calls a GM set, or in that case, I think it was the president calls the GM and goes, whatever. Hey. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're Brunette, I mean, I don't know. I assume
number one thing we can say about
curious
Brunette is he's not done coaching. Like
he should.
One thing I can say is Andrew Brunette's going to get another head coaching job, whether it's in Florida or somewhere else. Doesn't matter. He will. He's younger too. Like in terms of coaching age, he is on the.
Do you know who just got hired in another coaching position? So the Coachella Valley Firebirds of the American Hockey League, the Seattle Kraken farm team that begins play in 22-23. I believe they're starting off in Seattle and they're moving down to Coachella Valley. I think it's the teams in Palm Springs, where they're calling it Coachella Valley so that more people from the area can come in. But Dan Bilsma is the new head coach for the Seattle AHL team. And Dan Bylsma, again, up and coming coach. He's got a cup ring. He's very, very good. Disco Dan. But he's sort of, he was an assistant coach last year in Charlotte in the American Hockey League.
That was their double.
There was the split affiliate, and now they have their own farm team. So he's spending off to coach there. But like a lot of, we've saw this Dallas Eakins, former Edmonton Oilers coach, went down and coached in San Diego, the Ducks farm team, the Gulls. And then, now he's the bench boss in Anaheim. So that kind of thing happens. I'm really curious when Andrew Brunette ends up, because he put in the work. I mean, you can't, it's a rough situation. And did they do great in the playoffs? No, but they're a young team for the most part. Like, they're an up and coming team, and hopefully he gets an opportunity somewhere else, because it's.
And they score goals. They score goals. They have
and especially like they had to for a while. They had like a weird 300 monster in goal, because they had, I think, Jonas Johansson for a bit, and Spencer Knight, and Bobrovsky, and then Bobrovsky wasn't great for a while. Then
they had to let Knight cook in the AHL for a little bit, so they had bounce around Jonas Johansson there for a bit, and then they called Knight up to end the year, and he was playing pretty regularly and fairly well. Obviously, they went with Bobrovsky in the playoffs. He had a real decent comeback year compared to what he did the first time there. Especially when you're paying the guy $10 million, you kind of are like going to give him a few opportunities more than you'd give him a few other people, because you're like invested. We say NHL opportunities earned, but you get paid based on what you did, not what you're going to do. And so that's the danger with contracts.
And that's for the coaches too. I mean, I think the speak of the devil, old Jay Woodcroft.
Oh yeah,
not Todd, Jay Woodcroft. The NHL Woodcroft. He just got a 3-year deal. He was the interim coach. He got promoted. He got a 3-year contract. I believe the report is $2 million a year. That's a bargain. Like he's going to outperform that contract. But I mean, he's a guy with no track record outside the AHL, and he's going to have the opportunity. Hopefully for him, because he's like a good dude, he'll have the opportunity to up his pay at some point. But I mean, it's an interesting situation. So it's
a harsh market too. It's a harsh, very, very, very critical market. And you go through even a little bit of a slump, and all of a sudden you're the worst enemy on the planet. And so kudos to him. He knows what he's getting into. He's been there a while, and they did just have a fantastic season. I said it when it happened. It was the worst thing a Flames fan could want, because he's actually a good coach. So it was like he got them playing the right way.
He was real good in new coach bump. But he was good. Like he ran the bench well. He had some injured players he worked around really, really well. And from media colleagues who covered the Oilers during the regular season and then covered them in the playoffs, he's good. I mean, he's talkative. He's really cerebral. He's got a good philosophy on the game and
unconventional background.
He was a video coach in Detroit. So he thinks the game. He's sort of one of the progressive thinkers who can sort of meld managing people and managing the numbers and managing the bench and there's a lot of little things that go into being a good NHL head coach. And so far so good for Woodcroft. I mean, he got his team past a very game LA Kings team in the first round in 7, and past a Flames team that looked like that they were going to really give them a run for their money. And I mean, they got their heads kicked in the first game, and they managed to bounce back for it. So I mean, game recognized, game good, and of course, how can you dislike Jay Woodcroft when he opens the press conference where you expect him to be doing victory laps around the Flames, and the first thing he does is give a shout out to Chris Snow. We'll give it. If you're on social media, go do your weak side strong video, record yourself doing something you normally do with your dominant hand, with your non-dominant hand. The goofier the better. Hashtag it, and hopefully get some money raised for ALS research, because I know it's easy to be skeptical when you see we're trying to raise money for charity X or charity Y, and who cares? There's no tangible effect of them. The money raised by ALS research has contributed to research that's, helping Chris Snow kick the crap out of this thing. And so I'm sure any number of other families who have folks get ALS diagnoses would love to have them be the next Chris Snow. So hopefully we have a lot more Chris Snows in the ALS community.
We're making strides. We're making positive strides in a good direction. And Chris is a fantastic and beacon of an example. Nothing but absolute respect and courageousness and so for Chris Snow.
As an awkward transition, one of the things that Chris Snow takes, he built the data department for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
And one of the things the data department does is inform their scouting and drafting. And so the Flames, we had Chris Peters on last week to discuss the upcoming NHL draft, where the Flames have 3 picks right now. They might have more later, but for now they have 3 picks. They draft 59th, 155th, and 219th. I believe I got all those right.
Yep.
And so, on the site, we've been doing, our second round targets. I posted one on Wednesday morning about Finnish defenseman Otto Salin, who looks to be very Shillington-y in the sense that when Oliver Shillington was drafted, Oliver Shillington had a year where he got sick, and I think he had a minor injury. I don't think he had mono. Someone else had mono, but someone on his team had mono, and then a bunch of people on his team got mono that year. But Shillington was at the U18s, and then he was on the junior team for his club, and then he was on the pro team for a week, and then he got loaned, and then he got loaned back, and then he got to the World Junior Camp, and then he got to the World Juniors that didn't play, and then he got back to he didn't spend more than 6 weeks in any one team, and so it's hard to get stability there. Otto Salin took that to a greater extent. Otto Salin played 17 club games all year because he got COVID, he got hurt twice, he was at the Holinkas, and then he played pro hockey as a 17-year-old, and then he got hurt, and then he went to the U8. He was all over the place. And when he was playing, the line was defensive game, not great. Sounds kind of familiar to Oliver Shillington in his draft year. A little bit of nervousness in his game defensively, a little bit of wildness that they bred out of in the AHL. Otto Salin, though, apparently chef's kiss, very high offensive ceiling offensively. So he feels like a home run swing in the second round. And Shay, the reason I brought up Otto Salin is I'm curious if you're Todd Button, or you're sitting in Todd Button's table, you have his ear, and you get to help to take draft philosophy. So they have 3 picks, and they might get more. They might trade them all away and have no picks. I assume they're going to try to have more picks, knowing the Flames. But at the very least,
they like to have a few cookies in the garden.
They always prefer to have more than fewer. So just the idea that they got 3 picks, and so you pick once in the top 100. You pick once in the top 150. And so if you go to, if you read Chris Peters' rankings, his top 100 and change on Daily Faceoff, if you read, our friends at The Athletic, Corey Proman and Scott Wheeler each do a top 100 and honorable mentions. Nick Richard over at FlamesNation, he's involved with a lot. I think he's still with Dauber. He's with a lot of, he does a lot of scouting too. He's very connected, very, very well read. He does a top 100. And so pretty much everyone worth their salt really does a top 100, because it's hard to really go past 100 and really be able to say anything substantial about the players. The Flames, of all the people you read on everyone's top 100, the Flames might get 1, maybe 2. If someone slips to 155, they might get 2 players on the consensus top 100. So if you're the Flames, do you go for the safe pick at 59, or you go for a home run pick? Because you can do guys, there's plenty of guys that you read their scouting reports and you go, so and so will be a really solid third line center. Not much more than that, not much worse than that. There's a few guys like that who are projected to go in the 50s and 60s. There's a few guys you're like, maybe they'll be a good third pairing guy. Maybe they'll be a good third line guy. Do you go for a guy who's sort of a quasi guaranteed, bottom 6 third pairing guy, or at 59, do you go for the home run swings? And would that change depending on what you had in your cupboards?
What I would do is I would use the data and the scouts and everything to make my list, and then I would stick to my list. You make the list for a reason. You hire the scouts. You trust the scouts. You've been doing well for a long time. If I had Todd Button's ear and all of a sudden a pick comes up and someone's like, oh, this guy dropped, maybe we can get him. I'm like, no, you made this list. You worked all year on this list. You don't make a change last second. trust the list, take who's top available on your list. You don't worry about positions right now. You just take who you think is the best player available at that spot. You're not getting another pick till 155. You get one pick in the first whatever. If I were Brad, I'd trade down and try and get a third and a fourth, but it just more chips, because someone always drops. Like, they've been able to find gems. We've been talking about it for years. The Rory Karens, the Johnny Gaudreaus, well, that was Feaster, but even the Mangiapanis, the Dylan Dubé's in the second round, the Rasmus Andersons, like Jack Beck's coming,
Justin Wolfe, Arseny Sergeev.
Yeah, I love Ilya Solovov too. Yan Kuznetsov seems like he's doing pretty good at the Memorial Cup.
Ilya Solovov, he's I'll say this, he might be the sneaky steady guy that no one's really talking about in the system, because like he played in the KHL at 20. He played 50 plus games in the AHL at 21. He's solid third pairing guy in the AHL as a 21-year-old. And maybe he's more than that. But I mean, you found a guy who helped you contend for a Calder Cup in the 7th round. There's value there.
But there's gonna be someone. Some teams always take someone way higher than they should, and everything. There's gonna be a guy there. There's gonna be someone there that projects good statistically and projects good visually, and that's who I want. And I honestly, we were talking to Chris. You don't know, like from pick 20 on. You don't know what anyone's going to do. Well, Yzerman surprised us all, took Moritz Seider 6th, and we thought he was crazy when that happened. Well, it turns out he knew what he was doing.
I don't know. I was at that draft. As soon as he get picked, people whispering like, oh, God, that's a good idea. Like, it felt like a Red Wings pick.
Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted Matt Barzal. The year Matt Barzal was drafted, I loved Matt Barzal. I was like,
and then the Flames traded their first.
And then Boston didn't pick him with any of their 3 picks. So, I mean, like, that was a great
we remember that infamous tweet. The Bruins might get all 3 of these guys.
Barzal, Connor, Shillington here. And right after it was Barzal, Connor, Chabot. Oh, what could the Bruins have looked like if they took those 3 guys? We'll never know, because they didn't take them.
Oh, and that's like, I think for me, philosophically, I'm kind of curious what the Flames do, because like if it was up to me, I go for a D. And the guy I really like at 59, and he might not be there at 59, is Thomas Hamara, who played as a teenager in the Finnish Liga. He's Czech, but he played in the Liga, so he's good. One of 3 under 18 defensemen to play in Liga last year. The other one of the other 2 was Otto Selin. But like I think the big challenge is like, do you try to play it safe, or do you go for a home run swing? Because I think if you look at if you look at the Flames forward group, I think they have enough depth at forward that if you want to take home run swings with forward, like let's just say, if the Flames try to take a forward at 59 and they whiff on him, I mean, one, kind of disappointing. I mean, if you look at the Flames, I mean, our pal Mike Gould has been critical of the Flames choosing to take William Stromgren in the 2nd round last year rather than other players available. And I liked the Stromgren pick. He had a disappointing year, but I kind of like their philosophy of let's pick different types of players from different parts of the world. And it's like they have the party mentality of they don't know what they're going to need, so they try to have a bit of everything. And so all things being equal, if they work their list and they go, oh, they see a few guys that sort of close to each other, they tend to opt for going with something different, some things they don't have. Same reason they took Yan Kuznetsov in the 2nd round one year, because they didn't have a shutdown guy. They went with I think the same draft, I believe the 2020 draft, they ended up taking Jake Boltman in the 3rd round. Again, they didn't have guys who projected shutdown defensemen. So that year, I think that year, actually for the defensemen that year, I think they got Kuznetsov, Poirier, and they got Jake Boltman. And they actually got Poirier. They traded down and got the pick they used for Jack Beck.
And they also got Solovyov that year, so they took 4D
in the 7th round.
They had like 9 picks.
But if you look at the D they took that year, they're all kind of different. I mean, I would argue that Kuznetsov is a more polished, less physical version of Jake Boltman, but they're similar. Poirier is the pure puck moving guy. Solovyov is sort of more of a 2-way, fill in the gaps kind of guy. He can play with anyone.
And also, this draft, this guy you pick isn't going to jump right in anywhere anytime soon.
He's not going to play AHL games for 2 years.
You're looking down the line too. But again, I'm a list guy. I'm gonna make your list, stick to your list. Like that. That's how I'm. Maybe you can package a prospect that you don't see potential.
You personally. Do you go more for floor or for ceiling?
Ceiling.
I think that's how you have to do it.
I go for what do I see? Like, I want as many possible top 6 20-goal scorers on the up front as possible. 4 checkers, guys that work hard. I care a lot about guys that aren't scared to go into the corner.
I think you can get high floor, low ceiling guys from college. I think, here's an example. Garnet Hathaway is a low ceiling player. I mean, he's a guy who will probably end up being, he's made a really good career for himself out of being a really good fourth line
depth winger, penalty killer.
They found him as a college walk-on. He did a year and a half on AHL years, or multiple years on AHL deals, and then they signed him to an ELC and he went off money. He was a late bloomer, but he was a high floor, low ceiling guy. He was probably never going to be more than a fourth liner, but he was probably never going to be less than a pretty good AHLer. He was a good AHLer right away. But I think you can find those guys, the low ceiling guys, in free agency. You can find them in, if you look at some of the guys that the Flames have in their farm system right now. I mean, a lot of them are signed to AHL deals. I mean, Alex Gallant has been a damn fine AHL player for them. And if he was, if he popped, they'd sign him.
They got Connor Mackey for free, right? Yeah. Like you stop and you think
Connor Mackey Connor Mackey might just be a defensive Garnet Hathaway in terms of his ceiling. But who cares? I mean, it's worthwhile, right?
You can find those guys. There's tons of Logan Couture. He didn't even get invited to his draft year. Didn't even get invited to the World Juniors. There's always something going on somewhere. You can find work ethic guys with good work ethic. You'll find them because they're working their butts off and they're going to get there. They're going to work their butt there. And that's what Hathaway was. That's a guy like Andrew Mangiapane.
Ryan
Lomberg, and he found a home. Mason Marchment. These guys, they work their butts off and they get to the league.
Yeah, you can find. I think you can find them late, and you can find them as free agents. I mean, Mason Marchment wasn't drafted. The Flames had him at development camp.
The fifth round pick of the Panthers. There's
all
sorts of these workhorse guys.
I think the draft is for ceiling. The draft is for big swings. Like the draft is for trusting your area guys and going, let's get a Jack Beck, let's get a those kind of guys.
Find a Pavel Datsyuk in the 7th round if we can, because why not?
But you don't find those guys in free agency. You don't find them in on the scrap heap. You can find other guys in the scrap heap.
Look at Andre Palat. He was one of the last players taken in the draft, and he has been Mr. Clutch for Tampa this current playoff run. He's been crucial to them, their cup runs the last 2 years, and they got him in the 7th round.
And he's a pending free agent.
Ooh. Yeah, we'll see how much money we have to spend. There's another situation.
We'll see if they have money left.
Yeah.
One of everything. Yeah, I think this is why I find the draft so fascinating, because the fun thing about the draft is there's 30, as Chris alluded to, there's 32 teams. They probably have 32 different lists, and the reason they have 32 different lists is even if we might at the end point of things, we can all say, man, so-and-so is a good hockey player. I mean, you look at Connor McDavid, and that's he's like the Aristotelian ideal of what, the platonic ideal of what a hockey player is. Austin Matthews is pretty damn close to. I mean, I think it's easy at the end of the process to go, that's what a good hockey player is. It's a lot harder when you crank it back a bit and look at them at 16 and 17 and look for things that turn someone into a good hockey player, or will produce a good hockey player in 5 years. And I think that's the fun thing for us, like watching junior, watching college, watching European players going, okay, what is it about this guy that's going to cause him to pop later on? Because I'll tell you this, 30 teams were wrong about Andrew Mangiapane multiple times.
Yeah,
30 teams were wrong about Johnny Gaudreau multiple times.
12 rounds of wrongness before he went for Mangiapane.
Yeah, he was on the table for an entire draft. A bunch of here's another example. Goaltending is voodoo, as we always joke. But every single team in the NHL had a chance to take Dustin Wolf multiple times. Every team but Calgary went, I don't know, he's small. and he's won his league's MVP award for his goaltending MVP award 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and if the Dub played full seasons, not over these COVID years, he would have broke all of Carter Hart's records for the WHL. He would have set every goaltending record in the WHL.
He'll probably go down legitimately as one of the 2 to 5 best WHL goaltenders of all time. Yeah. And again, he got jobbed by the pandemic. I'll freely state, Everett did not get a chance to play the playoffs 2 years in a row. He got jobbed by the pandemic. He probably would have been, he could have dragged Everett through many playoff rounds.
Rookie goaltender take you to the 3rd round of the AHL playoffs, like the last 4 teams remaining. Like, fantastic. Goals against average, great all year.
Took the six games against the best team in the AHL in the regular season.
Yeah. It's everything deserved. Flames are in really good goaltending hands, which we haven't had for a long, long time. Because Dan Vladar showed his worth.
Their number 1 was the 2nd best goalie in the NHL, as voted by the Professional Hockey Association and by the GMs. Their number 2 was very good for league minimum. Their number 3 won the MVP, won the goaltender of the year award in the AHL.
Their number love Sergeyev. You love
Sergeyev. For a 7th rounder, he was the best goaltender in the USHL by a country mile, and now he's going to go try to do it against men in college.
Was it him that we were worried about where he was going to play to start this season?
That was Chechelev.
Okay, because they've got a few goalies. They've drafted a few goaltenders lately. Like, they've actually been drafting more goalies recently than we've.
They've done 3 and 3. They went Wolf, Chechelev, and Sergeyev in 19, 20, 21. So I don't think they take them this year. No, there's nowhere for them to go.
Well, 3 picks and you let them cook. You already got your spots filled out. You're going to probably lose who is back up there. Adam Werner's probably going to go somewhere else.
Adam Werner actually signed in Sweden already.
Yeah, so he's already gone.
He's going to Malmo.
Leaves a backup role for one of those other 2 guys to come.
No, Sergeyev's already committed to college. He's probably going to play a couple years in college. Yeah, you don't go to the NCAA for
No, you go to get an education too. Yeah,
if you're a 7th rounder, why not, right? Unless you're Matt Coronado, you're probably going to stick around, because unless you're Matt Coronado, you're probably not getting a hefty signing bonus.
I'm very interested to see what Coronado. He came on at the tail end of this year, Coronado, and
while we're talking, I mean,
second year goes. He's one of their most intriguing prospects they've had in a very, very long time.
I've said this before. In February, a bunch, like 2 or 3 guys from Harvard, they're veteran guys, went to the Olympics, which is really cool. I mean, it's a weird Olympic year, and the fact, honestly, we always joke like, COVID shitty. Yeah, COVID shitty. No one's saying it isn't. But if you're Matt Coronado, your career might have gotten a little bit turbocharged by the COVID situation, keeping the NHL players out and putting the college players in. And all of a sudden, instead of being, a second line, second unit guy, your top guy for a little while, and he took it by the reins. He grabbed the ball by
all the way to the final 4, right? Frozen 4 was where they lost, right?
Yeah. They were. I think they lost in the regional final, but they won the conference playoffs. They were not a high seed. Yeah. They won their conference in the playoffs. They had to. They were lowly ranked enough by the pairwise rankings from the NCAA. The pairwise rankings are basically how the NCAA seeds the NCAA tournament. If you win your conference, you get an automatic seed, and then it's basically the best of the rest is seeded by usually it's basically strength of schedule and your success against strength of schedule. And so Harvard was on the outside looking in. They were in a situation going into their conference playoffs that they had to win through and win out in order to be in the NCAA championships, and they won out. And Coronado was their best player. He was the conference MVP in the playoffs, and he had a good last 2-3 months. And if you're the Flames, you go, okay, go back to school, have a good 8 months, and then sign in February or March, and then who knows what happens. So he's Matthew or Pelche is the guy I think to watch in training camp in terms of guys. Him and I think Mackey will have a good chance to make the NHL. Pelche will have a good chance to make the NHL. Maybe 1 or 2 other guys. Ruzicka I think has a really good chance to be a regular. Coronado is the guy, the dark horse to watch out for, because he's not going to be at training camp. He'll be at the World Juniors in August, most likely. Yeah. Then he's going back to school, and then you might see him again in March, because
March or April. Yeah, tail end of the year. And good. You know what? Even if he signs, he play. Sutter's not great at, he said it himself. He likes kids, 20-year-old kids and under, go win championships with your junior teams. Like, go learn how to play, learn how to be a champion, go do that. So I'm interested, but Coronado has super high end skill. He would obviously have to fit and play the right checking game. But
can you imagine potentially, like, your third line could be like, I don't know, Pelche, I don't know who the center would be.
Well, even
Pelche and Coronado with a veteran at the middle. I mean, Backlund, I don't know.
Could you imagine having a kids line? Like, I doubt they would do it, but having Pelche, Zichka, Coronado as your third line.
Maybe Dubé. Like Dubé's got a really good resume. Like, he hasn't really played a lot of center, but I think we can get into this later on as we get into the summer. I think the challenge for Dubé is he needs to have a consistent role, because I'll say this. I think the reason why, like, Tkachuk excelled because he was given a consistent role, Mangiapane consistent role. I think you give guys consistent roles, and then you hope that Shane doesn't get killed by ghosts. But I think that's the secret, and I think that's gonna be the big challenge, sort of making sure you have a spot for them, but a spot that can be good. Like, it does not just
where they can succeed. Like, they're not fourth line players, and that's what Sutter said about Ruzicka this year. They said he's good, he's just not he's a scorer. It's not his job to play on the fourth line, and we don't want him to learn how to play like that. We want him to learn how to play as a big, strong center that can dish the puck up the middle, right? So we want him playing in a scoring line with scoring wingers. Like I said it all year. The fourth line's job is different than everybody else's. You can't just call up a kid and put him there, because that's not what their job is. There has to be a specific hole. He's at center, goes out, center comes up, left wing goes up, scoring left goes out, scoring left comes up. If Trevor Lewis and Ryan Carpenter and them all got hurt in the playoffs, I bet you we would have saw Walker Duehr, because or maybe someone like Byron Frais, or maybe someone like Justin Kirkland, because they played that role. Because that's their jobs. That's why you need them. That's why you need those guys down there. Sometimes they don't get a chance, and the only chance they get is injuries. But guys like Pelche and Ruzicka and Zari, their jobs aren't going to be playing that role. Their jobs are to be scoring and be ready to be there when there is an injury, because injuries do happen. We saw in the playoffs, like, the Flames didn't have the depth on D to replace Chris Tanev properly. They didn't. Michael Stone wasn't the piece. He played very well.
A lot of teams wouldn't have the depth to replace Chris Tanev.
No one has the depth.
Let's wind up with a Q&A. We got two questions. First was kind of a fun one. We were asked, one of our friends on Twitter asked us, what's your favorite hockey movie?
You go first, Mike.
I'll say this. I'm a big Jerry Baruchel guy. I loved Goon. I mean, Goon, I feel bad for not saying Slapshot, but, like, Goon, I think, captures a lot of the things I liked about Slapshot, and then sort of put a modern twist on them. So I'm a Goon 2, no. Goon, the first one, very good. That's probably my favorite right now.
There's two rules, Pike. Do you have any Percocets? And don't touch my Percocets. No, I love Goon 2, and I'm glad you mentioned Slapshot, because Slapshot is the classic. Slapshot is the first hockey movie. Shout out to my college roommate, Wally Sampson. His favorite movie, and he said it 1,000 times, was Miracle, which would probably get a lot more traction south of the border in terms of popularity for a hockey movie. I'm going to go unorthodox, because it's not a hockey movie, it's a golf movie, but it's predominantly features tons of hockey talk. Happy Gilmore. Love Happy Gilmore. Love the Bruins. Love him trying to stab people with a skate. Fantastic. I have to say that because you stole mine. I love Goon. I love Doug Glatt. I love Jay Baruchel.
And let's give a shout out to Liev Schreiber as the veteran. Like, Liev Schreiber, for those of you who might be new to fandom, Liev Schreiber early on, he was the narrator of the fantastic HBO 24/7 documentaries. I don't think there's ever been a documentary better about the sport than either I think the second HBO one, the second one with
Bruce Boudreau's swearing
Washington and Boston, legendary. and it was the year that Yager was with the Bruins, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was legendary. The Bruce Boudreau F-bomb every third word was people still talk and share about it and everything all the time. I think, and now they're doing the All or Nothing series with like the Leafs did it, and they're doing some sort of
the first two seasons.
Oil change used to be really good too on Sportsnet. There, I actually used to watch that. It was a real behind the scenes look of what the Oilers did.
Oilers fans I'll give a cheap plug since I'm in a plugging mood today. We're saying nice things about people because we like nice people. Jay Baruchel's book about being a Habs fan born into it. Fantastic. Like it's basically if you want to get into the guts of just live or die fandom, it's very, very good. And Jay Baruchel is just generally
he's just a diehard Habs fan, and it's very publicly known. And he's like Bieber's a diehard Leafs fan, and he always has been. And he became super famous, and now he uses his money to be best friends with Austin Matthews. But hey,
could be worse.
But sticking on movies. Slapshot was one I watched consistently growing up. It was tremendous. Another one that kids might like was that I remember was MVP, Most Valuable Primate, where the monkey played hockey. That was probably past you were probably well into college, your semesters of college by the time that came out, Pike.
Okay, let's go to the other question we got this week.
From Will.
If Johnny Gaudreau resigns, does his legacy rival? I think the guy who sends the question, he said, would it rival Lanny's or Iginla's? I'll say this. Lanny wasn't a Flame for very long. So Lanny, he's very good, and I don't think anyone's going to touch his goals record. But Lanny was only a Flame for a handful of years. He was arguably the missing piece of the puzzle that got the Flames a Stanley Cup. Take away the guy from Hanna, Alberta, and the Flames aren't nearly as good. They didn't have that extra special ingredient that they needed. And I think that's probably why he's so well remembered. His last game in the NHL was the game where he hoisted the Stanley Cup, and he got that fantastic photo of him hugging the Stanley Cup with a smile on his face. He's probably drunk as hell too in that picture too. But I mean, that's just what joy looks like, joy and relief in one photo. So my answer to that question is if they win a cup. Because I think Jarome Iginla, the only asterisk on his record is that he never won a cup with the Flames. Lanny did, and so if you want to say who is the best Flame of all time, I think best regular season Flame of all time is Jarome Iginla by a country mile. But the only blemish on his record that he has that Lanny doesn't, Lanny's got a ring, and Lanny's name is on a trophy.
And longevity matters because a lot of people don't know about Kent Nilsson. Right, like if Kent Nilsson played 15 years in a Flames uniform, he would be up here. He would be. He only played. Kent
Nilsson would have learned how to play defense though. Like Kent Nilsson had this Finn Berchi syndrome where Brian Burke could probably watch Kent Nilsson and go, well, there's 3 zones you got to play in. That's the only knock on Kent Nilsson, and you could solve Kent Nilsson by putting with guys who can get the puck.
But just what he was doing, and he would have been up there. Kipper, people forget about goalies. Kiprusoff was tremendous and created so many new Flames fans with his play, and his Scorpion save is still my favorite save ever of all time.
Everything that Mika Kiprusoff ever did made me just cringe and go, oh, my groin hurts, my hammies hurt just watching Kiprusoff live. When
you hear about the stories that he also would allegedly, I have no idea, smoke some cigarettes sometimes. That mid game that just
darts,
even further.
Because if you're the goalie, you don't need to go back, and you just need to stay in your area and be ready. So I mean, I'll say this: if Johnny Gaudreau walks tomorrow, he's very much in the conversation for one of the best Flames of all time. If he has another 7 to 8 years to add on to his resume, I think it'd be hard to imagine that he wouldn't end up being top 3 or 4.
If he leaves tomorrow, we talked about the Rushmore, right? The 4. That's the thing. People are like, are you one of the top 4? If he leaves this year, I don't think he's in the final top 4 for me. I don't. I think it's Iggy, Lanny, Kipper, and McInnes. Those are my 4. Al McInnes deserves his recognition. He won the Conn Smythe. He was one of the better defensemen.
I would argue that Gaudreau would be on the backup Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, he would be.
The backup Rushmore is Vernon,
Nieuwendyk,
Giordano, Nieuwendyk, and Gaudreau.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good
probably
second.
it. That's a pretty good second one.
But that's the thing. Like if you know, no one, you don't tend to hang banners of the second Rushmore. Sometimes you do if you have like a weird system.
If he stays, I think he takes Lanny's spot there because I don't think no one's bumping Iggy. No one's bumping Kipper to me. And I think McInnes was more crucial in terms of overall
McInnes won the Conn Smythe. You're not gonna take him off.
So if Johnny stays, he can take Lanny's spot, which is sad. That hurts me to say. That is my hometown brother. That is he bleeds Nickelback. I swear.
Nickelback.
He bleeds. Uncle Chad would be so upset. It's not actually my uncle.
He's everybody's uncle in Hannah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think hopefully that's a good enough answer for you. Again, we don't know where the hell's going with Gaudreau, but if he stays, he will probably be one of the remembered as one of the best of all time. And right now, he's in the mix.
It's his choice.
Let's go for
his choice.
So we'll get into plugs. One, FlamesNation.ca will have all kinds of draft content. We're in the middle of our second round target series. We're just finishing up a few guys this week. We're looking at defensemen and forwards and pretty much anyone. Shane is going to jump in with some content in that realm too. So it's going to be good times. We're going to get really nerdy about the draft. And two, we also got some history pieces looking at how the Flames have performed in undergraduate living in different rounds because, we beg the question, kind of weird that they get so many good players in the 6th and 7th round, eh? So we're gonna dig into that a bit. We're gonna have
a second.
We're gonna do a piece just walking you through the process a bit in terms of the Flames make a list. We've had some conversations with folks. We're gonna walk you through. We don't have the list. We don't need the list. We can tell you philosophically how they build the list and how it works. So that way you can sort of imagine how it goes from watching somebody in the AJHL and Okotoks in October to them being on your list and where they slot in and how they slot in. We're also getting into a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll get into free agency stuff. Again, cheap plug, weaksidestrong.org for ALS research. Also, post your videos. I have to get around to figuring out what the hell I'm gonna do because what I'm gonna I was thinking like, I'll just do a spreadsheet with my left hand. That'll be funny. No, it won't. That's not athletic at all. That's just I use my left hand sometimes on my spreadsheet, so it's not really that impressive. But that's the most impressive thing I do, spreadsheeting. But I'll find something semi-athletic to do and get someone to film me, and then you can all laugh at how uncoordinated I am. And if you want and then I'll probably challenge some folks in the Calgary Twitter community to get off their wallets and embarrass themselves on video for a good cause because ALS research, why the hell not? So that I think we're basically done, Shane.
For this week, I think.
I think we're done. We'll be back next week for even more draft discussion.
Or if there's pertinent, immediate breaking.
If in the event that there's anything newsworthy that we have to do an emergency podcast for, we will do an emergency podcast. So if you want to hear us flapping our gums about something important, when it happens, we will gladly do so. Expect it, if anything happens, expect us to look just tired and disheveled as hell. Granted, that's how I always look. So for Shane, I'm Ryan. This has been FlamesNation Radio, delivered by DoorDash and by Eau Claire Distillery, Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames, and dare we say, the official whiskey of an enjoyable offseason. So if you enjoy it, enjoy responsibly, and we'll catch you guys in a week, if not earlier, if there's anything emerging or emergent. Have a great week, everyone. Have a great summer. Stay cool.